Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. Today, I'm reading another chapter out of my North Carolina Ghosts and Legends book by Nancy Roberts, and this was titled "The Thing at the Bridge," and it takes place in Smithfield, North Carolina. So here we go. Time is such a relative thing that to an insect a few days may be a lifetime, and last month eons away. To the thoughtful among us, it is but a slight strain to break the bonds of time and imagine that a hot, still day in May of 1820 is our own today. It is easy to feed the heat of that sun beating down upon our faces, shoulders, and shading our eyes. We see again the white man and the black man hoeing cotton together along the bank of Mill Creek in Johnson County near Smithfield. There are master and slave. To look into the heavily lined face of Lynch is to see a face at once both ignorant and cruel. The slave, old Squire, had the red hair characteristic of Lynchfield's hands. The unusual hue was said to be caused by their diet. Lynch fed them on haymen, potatoes, and cow tallow. I don't know what that is, but it seems like they'll be getting thin if they're hardly eating anything else. Today the black man's labors seem only to anger his master. When he slowed for a moment's rest, the lash felt across his back with a crackle. If a sprig of grass remained in the row behind his hoe, the whip curled swiftly through the air again, stinging and burning like a streak of liquid fire on the sweaty, shiny black flesh. The two men continued to chop closer and closer to the bridge across Mill Creek. For a moment, Squire looked up, welcoming the approach of dusk. Lynch caught him at it, cursed, and once again lashed out with the whip. Squire turned, and the full searing impact struck Squire across his face. But this time the whip had met and ignited kindred violence almost of its own violation. It seemed that the shining blade of the slave's hoe made a swift arc in the sunlight, an arc which ended with crushing impact on the forehead of Lynch. I mean, come on, they tried to do their best, just not like they can make everything perfect back in them days. Without a sound, he fell to the ground. For a few seconds, Squire stood over him, horrified at what he had done, still holding fast to the blood-covered hoe. Then, seizing Lynch by the feet, he dragged him under the bridge. He hollowed out a grave quickly in the damp earth, working with fearful urgency, lest he should hear the sound of footsteps approaching the bridge. When he finished his grisly task, he crawled cautiously from under the bridge, and in a moment had faded into the dusk around him. On the following day, Lynch's absence was noted by his slaves, and local whites supervised a search party. The search was a fruitless one, however, and no further efforts were made, as Lynch was regarded as little esteemed by his white neighbors as by his own slaves. Among these neighbors was a highly educated gentleman named Aaron Lee, who lived on the top of the hill overlooking Mill Creek. An eccentric bachelor, he devoted himself to books and breeding fine horses. As was only natural, and stories began to circulate of weird events at the bridge. The opinion of such a scholar as Aaron Lee was sought. Local folk told of the sound of trace chains rattling the bridge at night, of torches ceasing to burn. The bearer set foot upon the bridge and mysteriously starting to blaze once more when he had crossed. On one occasion, a heavy cane left a man's hand to be thrust back into it again as he reached the other side. See, that guy did something. Ghosts cannot rest now since you buried him underneath the bridge, and people don't know that's what he done. He's trying to show off now. Finally, the curiosity of the man of letters needed to be satisfied. On a late autumn afternoon, he took one of his best mares and rode down the hill toward the bridge. His crossing was uneventful, and enjoying the fine weather, he continued on for some distance. It was nightfall when he reined his mount about face and began the homeward journey. All went well until he reached the top of the long sloping hill down which flowed Mill Creek. At that moment, a cold gust of air seemed to rise from the waters of the creek and envelope both horse and rider. Simultaneously, Lee felt something land on the horse behind him and cling with a heavy pressure against his back. A pressure so chilling that icy waves penetrating his very marrow. Instantly, the gait of his mare broke from a spirited canter into the slow dragging walk of a plow horse. She moved with great difficulty, as if weighed down with a load almost beyond her strength. Lee's first impulse was to leap off his mount and flee from the frigid thing pressing close to his back. With a strong effort of will, he held to his self-control. At length, the human rider, the horse, and its ghastly burden reached the bridge. As the mare's hoofs touched it, the terror-stricken Lee heard the most agonizing groans coming from beneath the timbers of the bridge. It was the pain-racked voice of a man engaged in death struggle. And although most of the words were distinct, one was plain. That was the word Squire. As the horse cleared the bridge, the frightful cries stopped, but the icy rider clung close to the shrinking horseman, and the horse itself seemed near the point of exhaustion. As she ascended the hill near Lee's home, as they gained its crest, there was a convulsion movement from behind Aaron Lee, and the thing accompanying him was gone as quickly as it come. His ghost is trying to warn somebody that it was Squire that murdered him, but I don't think he'll probably believe it. Relieved of her strange burden, the terrified horse leaped forward a gallop with such frantic speed that Lee had ridden 2 miles past his home before he was able to rein her about. When they reached home, the mare was wet with foam and sweat. Her wind was broken, and never again was she her former high-spirited self. It was not long afterwards that the time drew near for old Squire to die. In the closeness of the tiny slave cabin, he fought his withering conscience at every turn. Finally, he sent a pathetic plea to the scholar on the hill, begging to see him before he died. Aaron Lee came, and he listened as the old man poured out his gruesome and somehow pitiable story. There was no need for Lee to question it. The meaning of the word which he had heard coming from under the bridge now fell into place. Okay, he now believes that this ghost was telling the truth, because this guy is giving him a deathbed confession. He regrets killing him. Seeing that old Squire had just a few hours to live, he tried to reassure him as best he could. Lee left the slave's cabin shortly after nightfall, knowing the slave would never live to be brought to trial. It was early the next morning when Lee decided to exercise one of his horses. He started down the hill toward the bridge and was but a few feet away when he saw upon it the outstretched body of a man. Riding up to it, he was amazed to recognize the lifeless figure of old Squire. He would have sworn that the old man could not have risen from his bed, so weak the evening before. How had he come to arrive at this spot fully a mile from his cabin? It was a mystery Aaron Lee was never able to explain satisfactorily to himself. He became more and more withdrawn and pensive, but he told and retold the story of the fearful ride and the end of old Squire. In the years that followed, it had been a common sight at night to see a light bobbing up and down around the bridge, and those who saw it would say, "See, there is Lynch lashing old Squire now to his heart's content." And there's a picture of the ghostly rider on the horse that people see. But man, that would be kind of creepy. You go on a bridge and all of a sudden your cane or umbrella or some other belonging of yours just like pops out of your hand and goes back in. And if you're carrying a torch or a lantern, it would just go out, and then when you get on the other side of the bridge, it would light back up. That is strange. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this book reading video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more book reading content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Quarter Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day, all.